Graduating college was supposed to be the proudest day of my life. I'm Alex, 23 years old. First in my family to graduate college. I come from a household where my older brother, Evan, could do no wrong. He was the golden boy, got straight A's in school, landed a fancy corporate job right after college, and has always been the one my parents proudly brag about to their friends. The one with the bright future. Me? I was the kid who loved literature and philosophy. I didn't take the traditional path. I changed my major once. Took a semester off when I had a mental breakdown. But I made it through. I graduated. I earned it. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see me. But what actually happened on my graduation day? They threw a party for my brother. The morning of the ceremony, I woke up early, excited. I was nervous and couldn't stop checking to make sure my cap and gown were still where I left them. I kept imagining what my mom would say. Maybe something cheesy like, "My baby's all grown up," or how my dad might shake my hand like he used to when I was a kid and won a spelling bee. I sent a message in the family group chat. Graduation at 1 p.m. Be there by 12:30 for parking. No reply for 2 hours. Then finally, my mom messaged. "Back? We'll be there. So proud of you, honey." I smiled. That was enough for me. I got to campus early and waited. My heart pounded as I scanned the crowd for my parents. Nothing. The ceremony started. Still nothing. I sat with the other graduates, watching families in the stands waving handmade signs, screaming names, crying with pride. When my name was called, I stood tall, walked across the stage, shook the dean's hand, and posed for the camera. But as I scanned the audience again, no one was clapping for me. No one from my family was even there. After the ceremony, I checked my phone. No messages. I called my mom. No answer. My dad, straight to voicemail. I even called Evan just in case. Nothing. I stood there, surrounded by proud parents and their smiling kids, wondering what the hell had happened. Then I opened Instagram. And there it was, a live video from my parents' backyard. Decorations, balloons, a cake that read, "Congrats on the promotion, Evan." People were cheering, laughing, raising their glasses. My parents, Evan, even relatives I hadn't seen in years. They were all there. And none of them had said a single word about me. I watched the video, numb. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. They forgot. They completely forgot. Or worse, they remembered and just didn't care. Later that night, I finally got a call. It was my mom. "Oh my God, Alex, I'm so sorry. Everything happened so fast with your brother's promotion. It was such a big deal. He just got the news yesterday, and we had to put the party together quickly. We didn't think your graduation would be such a big production." I didn't know what to say. Not a big production. Mom, I walked across the damn stage. I graduated college. You weren't even there. "We wanted to be," she said quickly, but Evan's boss was in town, and it was important networking for him. We couldn't miss it. I stayed quiet. "We're so proud of you too, sweetheart," she added. "Maybe we can take you out to dinner next week. Just the three of us?" Dinner. Next week. As if that would undo everything. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment alone. No family photos, no flowers, no leftover cake. Just my diploma on the table and a cold silence surrounding it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, realizing I had always been second place. Not because I was a failure. Not because I lacked ambition, but because in their eyes, I'd never be Evan. The days after my graduation felt like I was walking through fog. You know that feeling when you keep checking your phone, hoping for a message that might redeem the silence? I kept expecting someone, anyone, from my family to realize how messed up it all was. To say, "We're sorry. We should have been there for you." But no one did. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not Evan. And that silence was louder than any apology ever could be. I didn't respond to my mom's dinner invitation. I let it sit there, unread, just like they'd let my graduation ceremony sit there, unattended. A week passed, then 2. Eventually, she stopped trying. But Evan... oh, he was everywhere. He posted a photo from the party with the caption, "Biggest moment of my career. Couldn't have done it without my amazing family." And there they were in the picture. My mom with her arm around him, my dad raising a glass, smiling like he just won the lottery. I wasn't even tagged. It was like I didn't exist. About 3 weeks later, my Aunt Claire, who lives a few hours away, called me. "I just heard you graduated." "Congratulations, sweetheart." "I saw it on your cousin's story." I smiled, even though it hurt. "Thanks, Aunt Claire." "Wait, why didn't your parents post anything? I thought you all were close." I hesitated. I guess Evan's promotion was just more exciting. There was a pause on her end. Then she said something that stuck with me. "Alex, I don't want to overstep, but this isn't the first time they've overlooked you. You deserve better than that." It was the first time anyone in my family had acknowledged it out loud. That call flipped a switch inside me. I started looking back at everything. All the missed birthdays, when Evan had something more important going on. The piano recital I nailed in high school that nobody showed up to. The soccer game I won, and the empty bleachers on our side. Even Christmas mornings felt skewed. Evan would get expensive electronics, trips, even cash. I'd get books or gift cards. Not that I wasn't grateful, but the imbalance wasn't subtle. And every time I pointed it out, I was told I was overreacting or being sensitive. No, I was being real, and the truth was ugly. A month after graduation, I made a decision. I stopped reaching out. No birthday texts. No calls to check in. I even muted our family group chat. And it's funny, when you stop initiating, you find out real quick who actually values you. Because when I stopped trying, they stopped noticing. It wasn't until September, nearly 3 months later, that I got another message from my mom. "Hey honey, just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a while. Hope everything's okay?" I didn't reply. A week later, my dad texted, "Want to grab lunch? It's been too long." Still nothing from me. Then, finally, a message from Evan. "You mad at us or something?" That one made me laugh. Mad? No. Disappointed. Definitely. Tired? Absolutely. But mad, I wanted to reply with everything, to dump the weight of the last 20 years into a single message and make him feel it. But instead, I typed one sentence. "You only noticed I was gone because no one else was around to cheer for you." I didn't wait for a reply. The next time I saw any of them in person was Thanksgiving. I debated not going. Honestly, I should have followed my gut. But part of me still hoped things could be different. That maybe, just maybe, they'd realize how much they'd pushed me aside. I walked into the house and was greeted with polite awkwardness. My mom hugged me like she was trying to prove something to an audience. My dad offered a stiff smile. "Evan?" He barely looked up from his phone. Dinner was tense. Small talk about the weather. Work updates. My cousin's new baby. Then, right as dessert was being served, my mom said, "We're so proud of both our boys. Evan with his big promotion, and Alex graduating college." I blinked. Now she wanted to acknowledge it? I looked around the table. No one said anything. No toast, no clapping. Just a vague, belated mention, like a footnote in a speech written last minute. So I stood up, quietly pushed my chair back and said, "I think I've had enough." "Alex, what's wrong?" my mom asked, half standing. "What's wrong?" I repeated. You celebrated Evan's job like it was the Nobel Prize and forgot completely about the fact that I graduated. You didn't show up. You didn't call. You didn't even send a text. My dad cleared his throat. We said we were sorry. No, you made excuses. That's different. I looked at Evan, who was suddenly very interested in the pie on his plate. And you knew. You knew it was my graduation day, but of course your networking party was more important. No one said a word. I've spent my whole life being second place in my own family. And I've tried to be okay with that. But I'm done pretending. With that, I grabbed my coat and walked out. It had been over a month since Thanksgiving, and I hadn't spoken to my family at all. Not a call, not a text, nothing. And for the first time in years, I finally felt free. No more waiting for someone to notice me. No more tiptoeing around their feelings while mine were ignored. I'd always thought I needed their validation to feel complete. Turns out I didn't. What I did need was space and clarity. I focused on myself. Got a part-time job at a publishing house while I worked on applications for grad school. I moved into a smaller apartment in the city. It wasn't much. A little rundown, barely furnished. But it was mine. I'd never felt more in control. Then, one day, out of the blue, I got a message from an unfamiliar number. Hi, Alex. I know we haven't spoken before. I'm Rachel, Evan's fiancée. Can we talk? My chest tightened. I stared at the message for 5 straight minutes. I didn't know what I was expecting from her. Maybe some weird attempt to defend Evan. Maybe a passive-aggressive olive branch. But what came next absolutely blindsided me. We met at a coffee shop near my place. She was already seated when I walked in. Neat coat, polite smile, a little nervous. Thanks for meeting me, she said as I sat down. I nodded. What's this about? She paused for a moment, then said, I think you deserve to know the truth about your family and about what Evan's been saying. I blinked. What do you mean? She pulled out her phone, opened the Notes app, and started reading. Apparently, you're emotionally unstable, jealous of Evan's success, and constantly stirring drama. Your parents said you've always been like this, needy, sensitive, difficult to include in things. I just stared at her, speechless. She continued, softer this time. At first, I believed it. I thought maybe you were the problem. But after Thanksgiving, after seeing the way your name was barely spoken, how no one even acknowledged your graduation, I started questioning everything. I sat back, silent. I've never seen a family so good at rewriting reality, she added. And Evan's ego, it's not just annoying, it's manipulative. I let out a shaky breath. Thank you for telling me. She nodded. You didn't deserve to be treated like that. And honestly, I don't think I can marry into a family that erases people. That line hit me hard. It wasn't just about me anymore. About a week later, I got another message, this time from my dad. Your brother's wedding is off. We need to talk. I ignored it. Then my mom called. Then Evan himself. I blocked all of them. Whatever was happening on their end wasn't my problem anymore. I had spent years being the forgotten one, the invisible sibling. I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their broken version of family, but the part I wasn't expecting was Rachel. She started checking in, sending job opportunities, even brought over takeout one evening when she knew I'd been working late. I don't know what I'm doing, she said that night, sitting on my couch in her hoodie. Breaking off the engagement was the right move, but I still feel like I'm walking away from an entire world. You are, I said. But that world was fake, just a shiny illusion. She nodded slowly. Yeah, you're right. We didn't talk for a while after that. Just sat there, eating noodles and watching some terrible reality show. But that night, when she hugged me goodbye, it didn't feel like a goodbye. It felt like the beginning of something real. Then came Christmas, and that's when the next emotional landmine hit me, because out of nowhere, Out of nowhere, I received a handwritten letter from my mom. Not a text, not an email, a real handwritten letter. I opened it, hesitant, expecting some veiled guilt trip, but what I got instead shook me. Dear Alex, you probably don't want to hear from me. And I don't blame you. But please, just read this. I've been a bad mother. I favored Evan for years, and I don't know why. Maybe because he reminded me more of your father. Maybe because he was always louder, more demanding, and I didn't know how to handle both of you at once. But I see it now, how I hurt you. You were the quiet one, the patient one, the one who never asked for more than the bare minimum, and even then, we failed you. I'm sorry, I really am. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I finally see what I did. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times, and I cried. Not because it fixed anything, but because it was the first time she'd ever taken responsibility. No deflection, no blame, just ownership. I didn't reply right away. I wasn't ready to, but it made me wonder, was this real? Was this the start of change, or just another attempt to pull me back into their web? I didn't know. But I knew one thing. I was no longer the invisible one. They saw me now, and they knew what they lost. I didn't answer the letter, not right away at least, because for once I wanted to sit in the quiet and figure out what I wanted. Not what they wanted, or what made them feel better, or what looked good from the outside. The apology from my mom was unexpected. It rattled me more than I cared to admit. After all, I had waited for years to hear those words, and now that they'd arrived, they didn't feel as healing as I'd imagined. They just made me feel tired. Because words were easy. And for my entire life, that's all I got. Words. Empty promises, half smiles, excuses dressed up as affection. I needed actions, and so far. There hadn't been any, but a few days into January, I got another letter, this time from my dad. He wasn't a man of emotion. I could count on one hand the number of times he'd said he was proud of me. So I braced myself for something defensive. Something clipped and cold. But instead, it started like this. Alex, I read your mother's letter and realized I owed you one too. I was wrong. I made you feel like a ghost in your own family, and I can't take that back. But I want to say something I should have said a long time ago. I'm proud of you. Not because you graduated, not because you're doing well, but because you stood up for yourself when no one else would. That took courage, and I see it now. I sat there, just stunned. I never thought my dad was capable of writing anything like that, and maybe that's part of the problem. I had stopped believing they could change. A few days later, Rachel and I met for lunch again. She brought me a small envelope and slid it across the table. Before you open it, she said, just know, I didn't tell them to do this. Inside was a birthday card. Not from Rachel, from my entire family, signed by my mom, dad, and even Evan. Each had written something personal, something real. Evan's note was the shortest, but even he admitted he'd been a jerk and a show-off, and said he was working on it. It was the first time I'd seen their handwriting come together in one place, all directed toward me, not as an afterthought, but as the focus. And you know what? It hurt, because I realized how much of my life I'd spent begging for moments like that. I started therapy the following week, not because of them, but for myself. Because I wanted to break the pattern. I didn't want to carry this hurt into every room I entered. I didn't want to become so bitter that even real apologies started to feel like traps. My therapist said something that stuck with me. Sometimes the apology comes too late to heal the old wound, but it can still stop it from bleeding further. That's how I viewed it now. Their letters weren't a reset. They weren't a fix. But they were a start. And for once, the starting point was me. Evan and I met for coffee a few weeks later. We sat outside, not really sure how to start. He fidgeted with his cup before finally saying, I was a terrible brother. I looked at him, I always thought I had to be the star, he added. I didn't even realize I was stepping on you to shine brighter. I shrugged. You didn't have to realize. That was the problem. He nodded slowly. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know I'm working on being better. It wasn't a perfect moment. It didn't fix years of pain. But for the first time in a long time, he sounded human. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat there, two grown men finally seeing each other for who they were, not who we were told to be. Fast forward a few months, I moved into a better apartment, closer to the city, got promoted at work, and started writing again, something I had stopped doing back when I felt invisible. Rachel and I, we stayed friends, close friends, maybe something more someday. But for now, we were just two people who understood what it felt like to break away from a false narrative. Didn't go back to family dinners right away, but I didn't shut the door either. I let things unfold naturally, and slowly, things did change. My parents started calling just to ask how I was. Evan sent me articles he thought I'd enjoy. Asked me about work. Even showed up at one of my readings. I wasn't the forgotten one anymore. But more importantly, I didn't need them to see me to feel seen. I had finally learned how to stand in my own story.